Showtime! The Capital G Show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here once again talking about the ban list in this video, but this time I'll be breaking down some cards that I personally believe are almost guaranteed to be getting banned by the end of this calendar year. With the recent July 1st OCG ban list, Konami made one thing incredibly apparent, and that is that they are going hard after first turn kill strategies and monsters that tribute themselves or others for burn damage like the Cannon Soldier monsters, even long time degenerate strategies that are basically solitaire OTK like Magical Explosion. These cards are getting taken out of the game completely. And if you think that this is simply an OCG focus, keep in mind that on the last TCG ban list, Konami banned Supreme King Starving Venom and Limited Gem Knight Master Diamond in response to prevalent FTKs that we're seeing play in the meta. While FTKs are practically impossible to fully remove from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, as I've said in the past, they're showing that they aren't afraid to remove some extremely obscure and old cards from the game to limit their prevalence. With that said, I will be completely omitting Firewall Dragon from the list, as in my personal opinion, Konami has proven time and time again in both regions of Yu-Gi-Oh that no matter how many first turn kills Firewall Dragon directly facilitates, they simply are not willing to ban the card. I also will not have cards that are already banned in either region because I feel like that doesn't really serve a purpose. It's kind of predictable that those cards will end up banned in both regions. I also think it's important to note that I will not be limiting this list exclusively to FTK enabling cards, and I will have others listed that are simply too strong or always associated with overwhelmingly just powerful spam fields. Lastly, this is just my personal opinion, so don't kill me if you don't agree with it. Without further ado, welcome to the top 5 Yu-Gi-Oh cards that will 100% be getting banned this year, the Yu-Gi-Oh hierarchy. Number 5, Reversal Quiz. Let's kick the list off with a card so obscure most people watching this video probably forgot it even existed. Reversal Quiz may be out of sight and out of mind, but it sure as hell isn't a very fun card to actually play against. Very similar to cards like Magical Explosion and Self-Destruct Button, there's pretty much only one way to use this card in a coherent strategy, and that strategy of course always involves your opponent never getting a turn to actually play Yu-Gi-Oh. When you look at the card on paper, it's so strange as the drawback is so absurdly high that it would be all but pointless to try to use the card effectively in a non-FTK deck, as resolving Reversal Quiz completely depletes all your resources on the field and also in your hand. This leaves the only viable option, gimmicky decks that involve paying tons of life points before activating Reversal Quiz and destroying your set cards such as Black Pendant and Fuma Shuriken. When these are destroyed, they actually burn your opponent to death as their life points are swapped with yours and they can't survive even the smallest amounts of burn damage. It's a pretty forgotten about FTK, I'll admit, but the strategy still needs to be retired permanently in my opinion. Number 4, number 42, Galaxy Tomahawk. Another casualty of a mechanic that didn't even exist when this card was created. Tomahawk currently suffers the same problem, and I believe will ultimately share the same fate as many cards that mass produce tokens. In past years before the creation of the Link mechanic, token cards were used for synchro summoning to great effect, or you always had the option of forcibly exchanging them for your opponent's monsters using things like creature swap. But now their sole purpose has pretty much become to facilitate enormous unbreakable boards of Link monsters. Tokens go so much further with Link summoning than they ever did with synchros, so it's only natural for people to try to exploit this during the Link era. We've already seen cards like Grinder Golem and GoFu do the same thing and end up banned or limited to 1, and people have been calling for Scapegoat to get limited to 1 for about 6 months now. It's kind of inevitable with that card. The reason a simple limit won't suffice with Tomahawk is because, as we've seen with Firewall Dragon and cards in the past like Tech Genesis Hyper Librarian, you only need 1 copy of the card to snowball out of control. Most extra deck cards in this position are simply best at 3 or 0, and it should be noted that as we get more generic and powerful Link monsters, this card's power will simply increase even if the amount of decks that summon it do not. Number 3, LONEFIRE Blossom. I've been talking about LONEFIRE Blossom for what seems like years now, and I think it's really coming full circle. When it was first released in Phantom Darkness, it went under the radar because of all the dark support that gave birth to obviously some of the most powerful decks ever like Dark Arm Dragon Return, but during the 5Ds era, people started to realize how insane this card was, and it just got better as plant monsters evolved and Plant Synchro was eventually born. Fast forward to the Vrains era, and once again, a lot of the cards that made Plant Synchro one of the best decks of all time are now extremely useful for Link summoning. Dandelion, which has already been banned in the TCG, and its token producing ability, which is not a once per turn effect in any capacity. Of course, there's also Spore and Glow Up Bulb, both of which can inherently summon themselves back from the graveyard for even more link fodder. Add this to the plant FTK that was prevalent in the OCG meta earlier this year, and the commonly played Predaplant engine that has also had limits on the ban list in the OCG, and you'll find that LONEFIRE Blossom is always the common denominator with these broken plays that end up popping up from format to format. That and LONEFIRE Blossom unfortunately seriously limits future card design. Look at the plant FTK in the OCG as an example for this. Konami releases one random plant link monster that sole purpose was to help one of the worst archetypes of the entire Arc V era and Aromages, but because LONEFIRE Blossom empowers every single plant monster ever created, an FTK was created overnight. Number 2, Gem Knight Lapis Lazuli. I've talked about this card ad nauseum, and sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who wants to get rid of it, but make no mistake, Lapis Lazuli should be banned. For starters, the much maligned Gem Knight FTK is still very much achievable in the TCG with just minor adjustments. I'm talking about just adding a few copies of Deep Fusion to your deck and doing literally nothing else minor. This makes the limit on Gem Knight Master Diamond essentially meaningless. Master Diamond is a card that actually has tons of valuable uses for Gem Knights and allows the deck to have incredibly varied plays that can go in many directions, I should add. The biggest issue with Lapis Lazuli is the fact that she really doesn't fit her own archetype's playstyle in the slightest. Gem Knights at their core are a fast-paced, ultra-aggressive beatdown deck meant to overwhelm the opponent using huge, powerful fusion monsters like Lady Brilliant Diamond and Master Diamond. Taking down big boards via battle is pretty much their forte. This is why she seems so out of place. She really doesn't offer anything to the deck except random burn damage and really doesn't synergize with the Gem Knights well at all. We've seen Lapis Lazuli be the core of other FTK variants such as the Black Garden version. Obviously the newer versions don't even need to run the garden anymore, but to boil it down, I think that Lapis Lazuli is really just an FTK enabling card that is completely out of place in a beatdown strategy archetype. Our honorable mention for this list is Summon Sorceress, and since this is only a top 5, I think I'll actually go ahead and explain this one. I personally feel like Summon Sorceress is a pretty unhealthy card for the game, not in design, but really in the way that we the players actually use the card. Admit it, 99% of the time someone uses Summon Sorceress, it's for a super spammy, break my board, extra offensive onslaught that's usually completely unfair. A lot of times it's an extra link play where the opposing player just gets to sit back and watch in hopes of drawing maybe 1 or 2 cards in their entire deck that can actually crack their opponent's setup. I guess you could somewhat make the same argument for other link monsters like Crystron Needlefiber and I Sold Two Tails of the Noble Knights, but at the very least those cards were specifically designed to help boost low tier decks into competitive play. Summon Sorceress is part of no archetype, so banning her causes the least amount of collateral damage. She should be fine based on her actual design, but let's just be honest here, people only actually use her for degenerative plays, and that's simply a fact. And I actually forgot to include this, but yeah, she's pretty much a cornerstone piece of many of the OCG's prominent FTKs, so obviously that's another big strike against her as well. And finally, to our number 1, Amazoness Archer. I actually respect Konami for going after some of the old school cards that no one really plays anymore outside of the FTK burn decks like Toon and the original Cannon Soldier. They were designed obviously at a time before it was so easily to get tons of monsters on the field, and there were no near infinite loops back then like there are today with Firewall Dragon. The problem is Konami clearly missed this card, and almost all of the FTKs that the Cannon Soldier cards were used for are still 100% still possible by simply swapping them out for Amazoness Archer. To make things even worse, just like Toon Cannon Soldier, Amazoness Archer is completely searchable from the deck with Amazoness Call, so it's arguably even better than the original Cannon Soldier in these situations. Just like the old cards, she has no once per turn effect in any shape or form, and once you pull her effect off the first time, all you need to do is rely on your buddy Firewall Dragon and repeat the process until your opponent runs out of life points. I understand that it's a slippery slope, but Amazoness Archer is basically being used as a Cannon Soldier replacement right now with near identical results, and I feel like Konami should just nip that in the bud. That, and very similar to Gem Knight Lapis Lazuli, she's primarily a burn focused card and a beatdown archetype, so even if Konami was to ban her, the archetype's core win condition would hardly be affected in any significant way. I feel like they would just do well to just get rid of her altogether. So thank you guys for watching. As always, if I missed any cards that you guys guys believe are going to get banned by the end of the year. Leave that in the comment section below. And of course, let me know how I did on the list. Subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos. Subscribing makes life happy.